Hi, my name is Leena Shah, and I'm a developer at Oracle working on the content management headless samples. Today, I'm going to show you how to build a block sample in Svelte using Oracle Content Management as a headless CMS. Let's get started. The first thing we want to do is clone this repository in GitHub. This is the universal Svelte block sample that is already set up to use Oracle Content Management. Let's go ahead and clone this repository. Open up a command prompt and type in git clone and the repository URL. Now change over to the newly created directory. You can open this code sample with any editor of your choice. I will be using Visual Studio Code. The first thing we want to do is install the dependencies for this project. So type in npm install. Now, while the dependencies are getting installed, let's take a look at some of the files for this sample. First, we want to take a look at the package.json file. This file has a number of scripts that can be used for building and starting the sample. It also has a dependencies section, which lists all the dependencies for the project. Note, one of the dependencies is on the content management SDK. Here we are using rollup as a module bundler for JavaScript. All of the rollup configuration can be found in rollupconfig.js file. Let's also take a look at the .env file, which is the configuration file. We use environment variables to store configuration information about the Oracle Content Management Server. The server that is listed in the server underscore URL is a public Oracle Content Management Server. The channel token is what will be used by Svelte to authenticate into our Oracle Content Management instance. One thing that's really important is to ensure that you configure your cross-origin resource sharing to avoid any distributed denial of service attack. It is best not to check this information in as part of your source control code because attackers may use it to attempt to access your server instance. Now that the dependencies have been installed, let's go ahead and run a build. So type in npm run build. This is going to create a SAPper folder and a build folder underneath it. It will also create client and server folders that will make our universal Svelte sample available on the local machine. Now that the build is done, let's run npm run start. This command is going to spin up a live local development server, and the sample will be available at port 3000. Let's go on to the browser. And see the sample in action. Here you see the home page that is fetching a content item of the type OCE Getting Started homepage. If you take a look at the asset type, you will see that it has a list of topics along with some other fields for the company name, logo, and URLs. When you click on a specific topic, it will give you a list of articles that belong to the topic. The article is of the type OCE Getting Started article. So if you take a look at the asset type, you will see that it has a number of fields. And amongst them, one of the fields is topic, which is a reference to the topic that the article belongs to. When you click on an article, you will see all the article details along with the content and also the author details. All of that is coming from the fields that are defined for this asset type. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the code which is making all this possible. All of the source code for this sample resides in the source directory. First, let's open up scripts folder and the server config utils.js inside of it. Note that the first line imports the create delivery client and the create preview client from the content management SDK. One of the things this file does is instantiate a new client. That will enable one to access the content stored in the Oracle Content Management Server. Here you will note that we are using the environment variables that were defined in the .env file that we saw earlier. This method getClient is used by functions defined in services.js. In this file, you will find methods that encapsulate calls to the content SDK and return the results back to the Svelte components to be rendered. For example, here's a method called fetchHomepage, which uses the client that we saw earlier that was defined in server config utils.js, and it uses the query item method on it to get a content item of the type OCE getting started homepage. The data that is returned back by the server is then returned back to the Svelte component to be rendered into HTML. Similarly, the fetch topic articles uses the query items on the delivery client to fetch items of the type OCE getting started article and belonging to a specific topic. In short, this file contains all the content SDK calls the sample needs to render the data. In Svelte, you create pages by adding files to the source routes directory of your project. These will be server rendered so that a user's first visit to your app is as fast as possible, and then a client-side app takes over. The file name determines the route. In our sample, we want to provide 3 routes: the home page, which shows a list of topics, the topic details, which displays all the articles for a given topic, and finally an article details page, which displays the article content along with other information about the article. The component in index.svelte is responsible for rendering the home page. The article's slug.svelte is responsible for rendering the page for a specific topic. Dynamic parameters are encoded using the square brackets. The article slug.svelte file will serve the page for the specified article. Let's take a look at index.svelte for more details. In Svelte, components are defined in a file with a .svelte extension, and they can contain 3 optional blocks: one for JavaScript in a script element, one for HTML, and one optional block for component styles in a style element. All of our styles are defined in a global style sheet. So you will not find the style component, the style block inside of a component in our code. Here you will find that the component imports the get topics list page data from services.js that we saw earlier. This data is then used by the HTML block to be rendered into HTML. It uses the topics list item component to render each of the topic on the home page. This component can be found in the components directory. When you click on a topic, the request is handled by the component that is located in articles slug.svelte. The preload function calls the fetch topic articles that was defined in services.js, and that data is used in the HTML block. Similarly, when you click on an article, the request is handled by the component located here. The article ID will be passed in through the request row, and that is used in the fetch article details. Let's revisit the block sample in the browser once again. As you can see, here is a home page that is being rendered by the index.swell component that we saw earlier. A click on the topic will make a request for articles in a specific topic, which is handled by the component defined in articles slug.svelte. The slug value will be replaced by the topic ID that is found in the request row. When you click on an article, that request will be serviced by the component that is defined in the folder article slug.svelte. The article ID will be found from the request row. That's it from my end. Thank you for watching this video about how you can use Svelte in conjunction with Oracle Content Management as a headless CMS to build and implement a blog app. You can find more samples like this on our headless Oracle Content Management documentation pages. Have fun building.